Okay, we're here with Dave Norona, snowmobiler extraordinaire from Squamish, BC, British Columbia. We're in Twin Falls at Action Cycles and Sleds. They're having their Skidoo open house today. Dave's here for that. We've asked him to give us some ideas, tips, things to take care of your sled. So first thing we want you to address, Dave, is how do you put your sled away? I know we're getting ready to start the season this winter, but what are you doing to put your sled away after last season?
Well, thanks, Lane. And it's awesome to be here in the middle of Idaho. And it's way too nice, as we were saying. It should be snowing more.
Yes.
But yeah, so what I do when I put my sled away for the season is I give it a good wash. I work with XPS, which you all know is the oil that you should be using in your snowmobile, and they make amazing products, which some we're going to show you today. But I use their degreaser and wash, which is basically just wash the machine, clean everything. I get in and clean the clutches, clean the belt. Most cases I even leave the belt off for the summertime. And then I change my chain case oil so everything in it is fresh. I fog the snowmobile to the manufacturer's specification, which is right in your manual, really easy to do. And then I find a spot in my garage that I'm not going to use for a long time and put the cover on, throw some dirt bike tires on it, some trials tires, and forget about it until wintertime when I pull it out. And then for me, I just have to pull it out. I do still change I won't change the chain case oil right before I go riding, but after the first 2 or 3 rides, I change it. And you should actually do that on a new machine as well. The break-in, after you go through break-in, you should change your chain case oil if it's a new machine. And I don't really have to do much. I will, again, clean my clutches. Even though they went away clean, there's going to be dust and there could be things just to check them, wash my belt, put it in there, and it's just good in getting into that habit of doing. And then just checking all the bolts, making sure everything was good to go from last season. The track tension, make sure I check that because I probably didn't check it when I put it away. There's a lot of people that swear you have to put 2x4s under the track, otherwise the track's going to fold. So you can put it up under here, or that you need to suspend it because of the suspension. You don't need to do either of those things. There's nothing wrong with doing it, but you don't need to go out of your way to have the snowmobile jacked up in any shape.
So why are people doing that then? Why are they telling you?
You know, a lot of things that people do, they do because their alpha male friend tells them that they should do it, and so they do it, which is why we do a lot of the things that we do. And I'm not saying that isn't that's wrong. I'm just saying you don't need to do that. The track's not going to fold under you for sitting in your garage or shop for the summertime.
Okay, so I'm not as dutiful at putting my sled away as you are. I just
told me how you put your sled away.
Yeah,
and so I'm hurt.
Yeah, I just.
Not as. That's rad, but I'm hurt. That's a rad sound, and I'm hurt by your sounds.
Okay,
putting it away totally dirty.
Yeah, or wet. Last ride I put it in the garage. You'll tell me I'm probably stupid for doing that, but what are you gonna do at the beginning of next season to counter all that dumb action?
You got a little more work because you probably put it away dirty. It's probably filthy inside the clutch area. You probably got clutch dust, belt dust everywhere. Probably didn't do your chain case. Probably didn't do anything. Probably didn't cover it, so it's got a layer of dust on it. So what I would do in that case, again, use that XPS wash. Get it all nice and clean it up, and then we'll tackle all the inside stuff. So again, what I would do when we're talking about it is on this side, I'm gonna take my CVT cover off and clean my clutches. And one of the best things XPS has now, and you have to have this in your garage, it's called S1, and it's clutch and pulley cleaner. And this stuff it's not like toxic like brake cleaner, the smell of it. It leaves no residue, and it'll clean all the crap off your clutches. And then wash your belt, install your belt to the proper belt height, and you're good to go there. I will give you one last tip. See how here we've made this tool holder? Now this works really well. However, I tell everybody never to put your tools in here. The reason is because a lot of times when you put them back, you might not put them back right. And if they fall off, they'll fall down in and they'll bounce off your clutches, and you will ruin your clutches. So I actually take my tools always, and I always store them in my toolbox or a bag you have specific for that on the snowmobile. Don't keep them down in this area, just in case that just this simple tool falling down out of here through vibration and bouncing off your clutches will pit them, and you will need new ones. So that's a lifesaver right there. That's the value of this video right there.
Okay, so you walk us through at the beginning of the next season where you're going to start. Why don't you go tip to tail?
Okay.
And tell us what you're going to do to get your sled ready for the season.
Okay. So we're going to start at the front, and the first thing I'm going to check is I'm going to check actually that my skis are when I have a ski up in the air. I'm going to check that that basically there's no play in them. So if there is a little bit of play in them, you can actually replace the little buttons that go in and keep your keep the axle straight on the spindle, and replace those if necessary. Super cheap item, really easy to do, but a lot of people don't do them. I also would check the runners on the bottom to make sure that you have enough life in them, because if you don't, you're going to start wrecking and wearing out your skis. So really, again, cheap and easy to do, but a lot of guys forget to do it. We've already talked about cleaning it, checking all your bolts, make sure your suspension bolts are that are holding your suspension are all torqued down to the proper spec. We talked about cleaning the clutches. I know, Lane, that you didn't probably add fuel stabilizer to your fuel.
No.
People think the fuel goes really bad really quickly, but actually these days fuel stays good quite for a longer time. So if you didn't do that, it's not the end of the world. But what I would do, we're talking about putting fuel stabilizer, but Lane did not, because he's Lane.
Yep.
So what I would do is just get our carbon fuel treatment. So that'll just go through, pour it into your gas, and it'll clean things as you go through that first tank of gas. Really easy to make up for that.
So I only need to do it for one tank of gas?
Yep, you only need to do that through one tank of gas will be enough. And then we do have brake fluid here if your brake fluid's not up to the maximum level, min-max level. And then same with your coolant on the other side. Make sure you have enough coolant in the machine, and just add if you need to. Make sure you're always topping it up with our 2-stroke E-Tech full synthetic blend XPS oil. This is the smallest. If you want to save money, the way to do that is to buy the big 2-gallon baby, because you'll save like 8%. So, and then buy your oil from your local dealer, make a good rapport with them, and they'll always give you a good deal. If you just go in there looking to buy a power bar for a special, they're never going to give you a good deal. Okay, buy all your good stuff. And then as we move back, again, just checking sure that all the bolts up here and on your levers and everything is working and is in good working order and not too loose. Again, we want throttle body to be a little bit loose so you can move it, but not loose so that you can move it. And then check your track tension. You can do it yourself. It's really easy to do. You just raise up the sled, and then there is a tensioner that you can buy that we use as a tool. It's a Skidoo tool, or your local automotive shop will have one, and the spec is all there in the service manual. If you have one of those, you can check online, or you can bring it down to your local dealer for that first of the season if you're not so good to it. On the and then again, that's basically it. It's ready to roll.
So if you were to start that in the morning,
yep,
all your checking fluid levels, all that stuff, what kind of time are we talking?
Well, I mean,
because you put yours away correctly.
Yeah, so I would take this is the time to do it before the snow starts. You don't want to do it the morning of, because you want to grab coffee and probably a breakfast burrito at your local coffee shop right late.
Yeah.
You don't want to be late for that. So I try to do that stuff. This is the time to do it while we're waiting for snow. Use that energy to go through your sled so that the first ride is going to be fun. When people have problems out on the hill, it's usually because they don't keep their stuff in good shape. So I'm always about looking after and maintaining your stuff really well, and then it holds up in the mountains. You're not having to do it outside in the mountains when it's freezing cold out. The last thing we'll talk about is that's I think really important is adjusting your chain case and the chain case oil. So we talked about changing your chain case oil, but making sure that your chain case, your chain is tensioned to the right torque. So there's a simple, easy way to do that. Shall we show you?
Yeah.
Okay. So all you're going to do is, and we can do it without taking the door off, but we're just going to pull the CVT cover off gently because this is somebody's sled. So
the guys at Action let us borrow their brand new Ski-Doo, so we're trying to take care of it.
So you can see there's no play here in the chain case, okay? We can do that by turning the secondary because they're linked to the other side. If there's a lot of play here, you need to tighten it. And so it's really easy to do, Lane, if you come around this side. And we'll open this door. Is the bolt. Normally you don't have your runners right in here by your exhaust can, okay? This is why we go over your sled lane so that you don't leave them down there. They're supposed to be on the bottom of your skis. Okay. They take these off so when they're running around the showroom they don't scratch it up. But anyway, probably that's why you check things over. Right? Yep. So this is your clutch tool, but it also works for your chain case, which is right here behind the actual chain case. This is the bolt right here. Here's the D-ring that stays in, the pin that stays in. You do not have to move that. If it's loose, if that's loose, you just turn it to the right, hand tighten, and then find the happy spot where the pin is, and you might have to go back a quarter or not even that of a turn, find its happy space. And this is something that you should check at the beginning, every 2 rides you should check it up until break-in, and then check it every once in a while. It literally takes 10-20 seconds to check and see if you need to add it so that this is under the proper tension. If it's too tight, you'll lose, it'll rob power. If it's too loose, it's really hard on the chain and you can break the chain if you're jumping, or it'll just wear out everything, gears and chain much quicker.
Okay, so remind us the intervals again.
I say every second ride till break-in, because that's where you get the most stretch, is at this beginning. And then I check it every 3 or 4 rides after that. Okay. Really, like I said, it's really easy to do. When my morning check is, before I ride every morning, is make sure my oil's topped up. I always leave with a full tank of oil, because I never know how long I'm gonna be out there. And I just check my chain case, so I grab the secondary and check it. Most times I don't even need to go onto this side, but if it's a little bit loose, I go in, tighten it a couple turns, and fill it up with fuel, and I'm off to ride it.
Okay, what about during the season? What are we supposed to check? Top off. I mean, obviously we're going to top off the oil every ride. We do too. We make sure we have a full tank of oil before we go. Just because you're right, you don't know how long you're going to be out. But what else is a good thing to check during the season? Okay, so right after break-in, so once I ride this snowmobile, I guess maybe 5 days, it's kind of through break-in. So I change my chain case oil, okay? The oil that comes in with your machine is a lot different, and that's the chain case oil right here, the synthetic. A lot of people will tell you that gear oil does not matter. I've done a lot of work with XPS, got to hang out with all the nerds, the engineers who design this stuff, and you may think that you pay a lot for this, but actually for the research, design, and the tech that goes into it, and how much they care of using super high quality oil, it's actually inexpensive. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a brand ambassador for them. I get to see and talk to the guys who make up the recipes, and it was quite eye-opening. There are a lot of companies out there that put out a crappy oil and market it like crazy so that you think it's really good, but it's only $5 cheaper. And I'd rather have the oil where we don't do a lot of marketing on XPS. We do more now because we're trying to teach people the difference. Educate them.
We're trying to educate them. There's a test they do with a dump truck on gear oil, and it's going up a 15-degree hill with gear oil in it. And the difference between crappy gear oil and good gear oil is the picture they have is like pitted and non-pitted. It's quite dramatic. So for the amount of times that you change it, it's cheap insurance to really make sure that it's running. So I use the synthetic chain case oil that XPS does. And then I do it personally every 600 to 700 miles or 1,000 kilometers. Okay, now some people will tell you only need to do it once a season. There's a lot of people that just put 1,000 or 800 miles on their sled in a season, and then they only need to do it once a season. But for us who are riding like 3,000 to 5,000 miles a season, I do it every 700 miles or 1,000 kilometers. And it's just cheap insurance. It takes me literally 15 minutes to do because there's a bolt that just drops right out. Open it up, and then when we talk about the tension, we already talked about the intervals for that, to do that. So again, it's super easy to do, and it'll just make sure that if you're always checking things, then things rarely go wrong. If you're not checking them, then they can go wrong.
So what else? during the
And then
season?
so on the other side, we'll quickly go to the other side as I drop over. So when we talk about cleaning, so we talked about using that product S1, to clean your clutches and keep your belt clean and keep your belt height proper, which is from the bottom of the cog or to where the cord is. Anywhere in there is the proper place for your belt to be, okay? Not if this bottom here is hitting the secondary, it's too low, and if your snowmobile is creeping forward under idle, it's too high, okay? So that's roughly where you want it to be. For intervals on cleaning my belt and clutches, I do it every 4 to 5 rides. So after, say, 4 or 5 rides, when it's in the garage, I pull the belt off, throw it in some hot soapy water, clean it all. You'll see the crap that comes off it, the belt dust. Then I take S1 and I put it on a rag and I clean all the rubber and dirt, belt dust off my clutches, and I clean the bottom. So it's always looking really nice and clean like this. This is how it should always look. And what that does is it gives you better performance, more longevity out of your belt, and your machine will just run better. And again, because you clean it every 4 or 5 rides, it literally takes me like 10 minutes to do. Whereas if you let it build up until it's horrible, it just gets everywhere and it takes you do the same amount of time, lots of times more, but in that one time, and you don't get the performance. And then we talked about topping up your oil. Again, super easy to do, and that's it. Fill it with oil and gas is what I do most of the time, and then just checking things. It literally takes me, 5 minutes in the morning to check everything.